The trip to Turkey was a solidarity visit undertaken by the World Council of Churches and ACT Alliance. And this particular visit was initiated by the Ecumenical Patriarch, who did request that we actually do a solidarity visit. The WCC and ACT Alliance's presence in these particular places indicated that we care, we are concerned about what has taken place, and we were trying to find out together how can we actually be of assistance. I might also stress that it was important for us to do this together. Working with ACT Alliance is particularly important in terms of this visit because they work essentially on issues of humanitarian care and concern. And so having the General Secretary with me, Rudelmar, was a wonderful step in saying how can we jointly be of assistance to the people in Turkey.
People in Turkey are still grieving for the beloved ones they have lost, and they are struggling to realize what to do now, as their homes were completely destroyed. The desperation is present as the way forward is uncertain for many, many people. They do not know where to go, what to do, where to get sometimes even help. However, when visiting there, we also saw the resilience of people and the support they got from the churches that were present in the communities, those that have not been collapsed. And also we have visited some of the areas where the churches are receiving people and are providing support to the communities, and also in cooperation with other national and international organizations. The solidarity amid desperation was critical for the affected people. We heard that from them. We heard from the leadership, from the congregations of the churches working in there. And that was fundamental for people to keep their faith and hope. And we also heard about the concern from the churches to keep Christian presence in the Antioch region, which is the cradle of biblical history. We could see that basically Antioch was completely destroyed. We heard that about 1 million people left the city, and the need to support to the affected communities is critical. And that will require substantial financial support from the international community, but also from the ecumenical movement. And that is where ACT Alliance, as Jerry mentioned, working together with the churches can contribute.
One of the things that we want to encourage is the continuity of Christian presence in Antioch, given our biblical history. So with regards to Turkey and the diminishing numbers of Christians, it seems as if most of the Christians may not even return to Antioch. So we have to give them greater incentives to return. And that incentives will certainly rely on the ability to reconstruct the city. Much money is going to be needed. Much time and effort is going to need to be put into the reconstruction of people's homes and churches and buildings and so forth. Well, one of the great things that is happening at the moment from what we had seen is the great ecumenical collaboration. The churches are all working together. We had met with church leaders who came together, Catholics, Greek Orthodox, you name them, were present in our meetings, and they had worked together. And one of the projects that they're working with at the moment is to facilitate the construction of temporary housing. And they're hoping that these temporary measures of accommodation can be given to people to encourage them to return, to help them to secure their livelihood and reconstruct their lives again as they move forward. And so the churches are very actively working together.
Well, the ACT members began responding on the day of the quake, conducting rapid needs assessments and also distributing emergency supplies, including food and winterization kits. That means blankets, warm clothes, etc. The churches, as it was mentioned before, open as shelters for people displaced by the earthquake, both in Syria and also in Turkey. And the ACT has received funds and pledges of nearly $8.5 million to date for the humanitarian response. And we have issued a Syria appeal. That is our project, our call for support from the membership and also from the public. And this project is expected to be implemented over the next 2 years until the end of 2024. And most of our work is in Syria, actually, focus on Aleppo, that is very close to the border with Turkey, Hama and Latakia. And the implementers of these responses includes the Middle East Council of Churches, that is an ACT member in the regions, working regionally, the Department for Relief and Development of the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate of Antioch, that operates both in Syria and in Turkey, Christian Aid from the UK, HACS, and Lutheran World Federation from Switzerland. They are responding together in this appeal. And basically what our members are doing there is providing shelter, household items, cash assistance, food security, rehabilitation of bakeries. That has been one of the areas where communities and people have been involved. Providing also winterization, because that happens exactly in the winter time, very cold. But they are also providing protections, especially for children and vulnerable people, and also support to the staff from these organizations who were also impacted by the quake.
I might want to add that the churches have formed what they call a commission, but unfortunately the commission is not a legal entity. And because it's not able to actually access funding or receive funding, which makes it very difficult. Of course, there are other humanitarian organizations that are working in Turkey at the moment, but we obviously can work as WCC and ACT Alliance to ensure that funding and assistance can be directed to the right people through the church and churches to be able to use that.
In terms of future needs, basically infrastructure reconstruction is what we saw there, especially housing reconstruction and rehabilitation. It's amazing the number of people that lost their houses. Basically, you know that in emergencies of this magnitude, it's very difficult to get the data and the information of those that were affected and in which level, to which extent they were affected. So the churches, being the communities, being part of the communities, they have, we could see that in Turkey. They have data that it's for organizations that are coming from outside is very difficult to get. And even the governmental authorities there, they do not have a system that is able to collect all this information. So for us, we have the churches and the people, affected people in the communities working together. It's important for ACT members that are operating in Syria and Turkey to engage with the churches to get this information and also to support these people.
Friday and Saturday and Sunday this week is Holy Week for Christians in Turkey coming from the Eastern background. And we were fortunate to be there during our Holy Week. And for me, one of the things that I was thinking about is that Holy Week is generally a very important time for me. I try to meditate and I try to go through the spiritual journey of journeying with Jesus to the cross and to the empty tomb. And I was saying to Rudelmar on our journey together that being in solidarity and doing this solidarity visit taught me a lot more about what it means to identify with suffering. And I could reflect on the suffering of Jesus in a different way, and then reflect on the suffering of the people who have been displaced from their homes and work and livelihood. Oh, I should just say also that on Good Friday and Easter Sunday, they are planning to have special liturgies in the vicinity of the church in the Greek Orthodox Church community in Antioch. And if the permission is given to them to meet, communities of Christians will gather to worship in that context. And that, I think, is beautifully symbolically as well, because it speaks about the fact that in the midst of suffering, in the midst of devastation, in the midst of disaster, in the midst of darkness, there is the eternal light of God that shines quite strongly and powerfully. Well, you know, the WCC speaks about in the last assembly that we had, our theme was Christ's love moves us to reconciliation and unity and, of course, justice. And I want to say that having been to Turkey and seen what I've seen for myself with my colleague, I realized more so that Christ's love must move us to identify with the struggling and the suffering, to journey with the displaced, to empathize and assist and support those who are struggling, as the people in Turkey are struggling at the moment. And I would like to say there's no better message during this Easter time that we should all realize that we are part of the bigger picture, that we are part of the world, and anything and everything that happens in the world should concern us as people of God. And so I appeal to Christians particularly to be moved by Christ's love and to respond to the situation through prayer, through support, through providing financial assistance in cash, in kind, to the people concerned. And for those who would want to do that and have no means to be able to do it in a formal way, WCC and ACT Alliance will stand in the gap to ensure that we can manage to be instruments to make this possible. So my final message is, let's work together. Let's be God's servants, assisting our fellow human beings